What if I told you that what happened to Lewis Hamilton in the sprint qualifying at Spa wasn't a driver error at all, but rather something Ferrari quietly tried to bury before it spilled into the spotlight? A sudden rear axle lockup, a ruined lap, and a 7-time world champion behind the wheel of the SF25 who showed no frustration, only deep technical concern. Do you really think someone with Hamilton's experience simply forgot how to brake at one of the most famous chicanes on the calendar? Or is something much more alarming going on behind the scenes? Today, we're lifting the veil on what really unfolded in Belgium, because what looked like a normal lap interruption was the visible symptom of a much deeper crisis inside Ferrari's new car. It started like any other qualifying push lap. Hamilton came charging down toward the bus stop chicane with confidence, lining up his approach with surgical precision, but just as he hit the brakes, something went wrong. Something no amount of talent or timing could fix. The rear axle suddenly locked, the grip vanished, and in less than a second, the lap fell apart. There was no smoke or wild oversteer, just a cold, technical shutdown of everything he expected the car to do. And yet, instead of frustration or anger, Hamilton stepped out of the car with a calm but sharp focus in his eyes. He didn't point fingers, he didn't blame the setup. He walked straight to the data screens, straight to the engineers, because he knew this wasn't just a mistake. It was a malfunction. The weird part? Ferrari said almost nothing. A few vague words about changing conditions and setup sensitivity, but nothing concrete. Nothing that matched what we all saw on screen. And certainly nothing that explained why one of the most consistent drivers in the sport would suddenly lose control in a braking zone he's conquered for over 15 years. The real question isn't whether the car let go, it's why. Because when a machine built by one of the most legendary teams in Formula One begins to behave like this under pressure, you have to wonder, is it just an isolated error, or a signal that something deeper is breaking down beneath the surface? And Hamilton? He's seen enough cars fail to know the difference. What he felt through the pedal wasn't delay, it was disconnection. A moment where he asked the car to do something basic, and it simply didn't respond. That kind of behavior doesn't come from cold tires or an aggressive entry. It comes from systems out of sync. And when that happens in a car like the SF25, brand new, experimental, packed with aggressive upgrades, it's not just a problem, it's a warning. Because if Ferrari doesn't get to the bottom of this, Spa might not be the last time something like this happens. It might just be the first time they couldn't hide it. And then came the moment that everyone's still talking about. It happened in the final seconds of Q1 during the sprint qualifying session at Spa. Hamilton was attacking the lap like only he can, smooth, confident, fully in control. As he flew downhill toward the bus stop chicane, it all looked perfect. His approach was clean, his line precise, and the SF25 was responding just as it should. But as he hit the brakes, everything changed in an instant. The rear axle suddenly locked up with no warning, and the back of the car snapped out violently. The grip disappeared as if someone had flipped a switch. 1 second he was on pace, the next, the lap was completely gone. With only a few seconds left on the clock, there was no room for recovery. That single moment ended his session. A 7-time world champion knocked out in Q1, something that almost never happens unless something seriously breaks. And it wasn't overdriving, and it wasn't a bad line. This wasn't about Hamilton getting it wrong. This was Ferrari's machinery breaking down at the worst possible time. A mechanical anomaly that showed up not during testing, not during long runs, but right when everything mattered most. In a session where precision is everything, the SF25 faltered, and it left Hamilton stranded on the wrong side of the cut line. What happened after the incident made it crystal clear that this wasn't just some simple mistake on Hamilton's part. There was no angry shouting, no slamming of the steering wheel, and no storming off into the garage like you might expect after a disappointing session. Instead, Hamilton calmly climbed out of the SF25 and made a direct path to the engineering screens. His expression was focused, not frustrated. His eyes locked onto the telemetry data like someone trying to solve a puzzle that shouldn't exist. He wasn't blaming the changing track conditions or brushing it off as a bad lap. He was searching for something specific. He flagged odd patterns, pointed out strange readings, and asked the kind of questions only a driver with years of elite experience would even think to ask. This wasn't a driver making up for a misstep. This was a champion trying to understand why the machine beneath him didn't do what it was told. That kind of focus, that quiet urgency, it only shows up when a driver knows deep down that the failure wasn't his. Something had gone wrong. Something didn't add up, and Hamilton wasn't about to let it slide. As Ferrari's engineers dug deep into the telemetry and onboard data, alongside a few sharp-eyed external analysts, the pieces of the puzzle started falling into place. And what they found wasn't good. What had looked, at first, like a rare lapse from Hamilton turned out to be something much more serious. A full-blown systems failure hidden beneath the surface. It all started with gearbox backlash, a subtle but critical issue where the gears don't engage cleanly, causing a delay when downshifting. That small hesitation threw off the rhythm of the car's hybrid systems, especially the ERS, which is supposed to recover and deploy energy smoothly. But when that system fell out of sync, it delayed the brake-by-wire response. So when Hamilton hit the brakes going into the chicane, he wasn't just slowing the car, he was unknowingly triggering a domino effect. The ERS didn't kick in as expected, the gearbox stumbled, and the rear brakes were suddenly taking on more than they should have. That's when the rear axle snapped into a lockup. Experts weren't quiet about it either. Anthony Davidson pointed out a weird vibration in the downshift, and Martin Brundle called it what it was, a mechanical failure, not a driver mistake. This wasn't Hamilton losing control. This was the SF-25 failing to hold together under pressure. It didn't just misbehave, it broke its promise. But even as the data told one story, Ferrari told another. After the chaos at Spa, the team released a short, carefully worded statement that tiptoed around the real issue. They mentioned tricky adaptation windows and evolving track conditions, but not once did they talk about the gearbox hesitation, the brake-by-wire delay, or the ERS lag that actually triggered the lockup. It was a polished response that sounded official but said almost nothing, completely dodging the real technical failures that the experts were already discussing publicly. And for a team like Ferrari, known for being deeply analytical and detail-obsessed, this kind of vague, surface-level reaction didn't sit right. There was no technical breakdown, no Q&A with engineers, no attempt to engage with what the telemetry was clearly showing. Just silence where there should have been answers. And in Formula One, when a top team says less than expected, especially after a high-profile failure, it's rarely by accident. That kind of quiet usually points to something they don't want getting out, something that goes deeper than just a bad lap. What makes this whole situation even more concerning is that Spa wasn't the first time Ferrari's SF-25 showed signs of deeper trouble. It was just the first time the problems were too big to ignore. During pre-season testing and even in a few earlier races, there were already small red flags popping up. Moments where the car seemed unsettled under braking, times when Hamilton or his teammate reported strange behaviour during deceleration, or unexplained instability mid-corner. Back then, those moments were brushed aside as part of the learning curve for a new car. But now, looking back through the lens of what happened at Spa, it's clear these weren't isolated events. They were warning signs of a system not fully clicking together. The SF-25's core systems, its transmission, hybrid energy recovery, braking, and electronics are supposed to work in perfect sync. But instead, they appear to be tripping over each other when pushed to the edge. Ferrari may have prioritized raw aerodynamic speed, trying to extract every bit of downforce and straight-line performance, but in doing so, they might have compromised the car's mechanical stability and internal communication. On paper, the SF-25 looks like a beast, but in the heat of battle, when everything needs to function in perfect harmony, it starts to break down. And that's the kind of problem no wind tunnel or CFD simulation can fix. It's baked into the car's architecture. This isn't just about one qualifying session gone wrong. It could be the start of something much more serious. If the SF-25 keeps failing under pressure like it did at Spa, then Lewis Hamilton's hopes for a championship run might slip away before the real fight even begins. A car that looks fast but can't hold up in key moments is more of a liability than an asset. And when a driver of Hamilton's caliber starts questioning the car, even quietly, it sends ripples through the entire team. Inside Ferrari, the pressure must be enormous. Engineers know there's a fault that needs fixing, but time is short and expectations are sky high. Team managers are caught between backing their technical direction and responding to their star driver's concerns. There's no room for guesswork or vague optimism now. Only clear answers will do. The big questions can't be ignored any longer. Can the SF25 truly deliver when it counts? Did Ferrari push the design envelope too far and sacrifice reliability in the process? And maybe the most important of all, is Hamilton still fully aligned with the team's vision, or is a quiet tension already forming between the cockpit and the factory floor? Now that you've seen every layer of this situation, the strange lock-up at the bus stop, the immediate deep dive into telemetry, the vague explanations from Ferrari, and the pattern of technical instability that's starting to show, you really have to stop and think. Was this just a one-off issue with setup and conditions, or is there something more serious hiding inside the SF25? Can Hamilton still dig deep and turn this around? Or has the car already let him down one too many times to mount a proper title fight? And here's the biggest question of all. Is this the early chapter of an incredible comeback? Or are we witnessing the slow unraveling of a partnership that was meant to redefine history? I want to know what you think. Drop your thoughts, theories, and hot takes in the comments. Let's dig into this together and figure out what's really going on behind the scenes.